So around 2 weeks ago, I reviewed the Razer Kishi, a gaming controller that attaches directly to your mobile phone. I'll leave a link to that in the description, but the conclusion I came to was that it offered good bang for your buck and it had a solid build quality. However, that's before I came across this beauty. Honestly, this is now my favorite piece of tech. What's going on guys, Saiyan Prince here and welcome back to another tech review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Backbone. The Backbone 1 to be exact. I'm not a fan of the name to be honest, but never judge a book by its cover. And the first thing that stood out to me when buying this was that 1 at the end of the name. It clearly means that Backbone has a sequel in the works, but having used this for the past week, I'm baffled as to what they can do to improve this product. So let's just get straight into this. The Backbone, like the Razer Kishi, is a gaming controller that attaches directly to your mobile phone, essentially removing any latency. This is the iPhone variant of the controller. In fact, Backbone hasn't released an Android version of the controller yet, but I'm told that it's in the works. Before we move on to the unboxing, I'll just post the basics up here. There's no point me repeating that every time. But what I will say is that if you end up enjoying this video and you want to see more content, then a like and a sub is much appreciated. Of course, if by the end, if I haven't answered your questions, then drop a comment down below or hit me up on Twitter. Now, it's time for the unboxing. Unboxing the Backbone is really simple. Just take the front cover off, lift the lid, and you have your gaming controller, alongside a quick start guide which simply illustrates how to attach the controller to your phone. And then of course we have a safety sheet that's not really worth looking at. Getting the Backbone hooked to your phone is also a simple process. The center of the controller can be expanded by pulling ever so slightly on each side of the controller, allowing you to perfectly slot in your phone. For reference, here's a quick size comparison of the Backbone against my favorite gaming controllers. With the phone attached in, the Backbone feels really sturdy, and even though it's not as wide as the Kishi when fully set up, I found it to be a better fit in my hands. Purely from a design standpoint, I really love the aesthetic that Backbone have gone with. The first thing is the controller comes coated in black entirely, with the exception of this button which we'll get to shortly. It's also housed in a plastic body, but the smooth, matte and shiny finish on its body gives it that premium look and feel. The controller also has rounded edges which I really like, as it means that the controller fits naturally in my hand. There's even divots on the side of the grips which function as little amplifiers to keep the controller from muffling the built-in speakers. The 4-letter buttons A, B, X and Y are placed in a similar position to that of an Xbox controller. In fact, now that I think about it, the Backbone resembles the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons in almost every way. So if you like that, you'll probably like this. Like the Razer Kishi, Backbone have gone with an asymmetrical design for the analog sticks, so PlayStation users be warned. One thing that I was pleasantly surprised with was that the triggers and the bumpers feel as responsive and familiar as with any conventional console controller. This is one area I felt the Kishi lacked. You could clearly tell you were pushing down on a spring, whereas on the Backbone you get some clear tactile feedback, and in all honesty that applies to all of the buttons on the controller. On that note, the controller houses 4 additional buttons. 2 of these operate basic functions, but the other 2 are quite unique. The orange Backbone button when pressed takes you directly into the app, which I'll discuss later in the video, and then there's also a capture button for capturing videos or screenshots. I was quite surprised to see this added in, and it gives the Backbone another point over the Kishi. The weakest aspect of the controller for me is the D-pad. Pressing down on it just feels kinda mushy. It's hard to describe, but it can definitely see some improvements. Last but not least, there's 2 pass-through ports at the bottom of the controller, one a lightning port for charging and one for headphones. Before moving on to the demos, let's talk about the Backbone app. The first thing to note is that the app isn't required to play games, but the app's functionality is locked behind creating an account. However, I highly recommend doing just that, because the Backbone app is fantastic. It comes with a suite of tools that you'll absolutely want to take advantage of, and it turns your phone into a game console of sorts. Let me explain. Pushing the orange button on the controller opens up the app, which has a sleek, beautiful UI, very reminiscent of the PlayStation 5's user interface. Here you'll find a list of all installed games and some recommended games for download. If you have a game installed that's not showing on the Backbone, you can manually add this in. The app also takes advantage of the iPhone's excellent haptics to buzz, when you flip around the menu, and the company made its own satisfying vibration effect, which is quite subtle. The app is also the place where all your photos and video captures are stored. You can even use the app's built-in editing software to trim your clips down and share the clip on your social media platform. One of the more unique features of the app is having the ability to create parties and voice chat with friends in the app itself. Considering Apple doesn't really have a social networking app for gaming, this feels like it's filling a forgotten but essential niche. Unfortunately, I've not been able to test this feature of the app just yet because I don't have any friends
Hello, darkness, my old friend,
who use the app. I have friends, okay? Moving on. In terms of power consumption, Backbone have stated that the One itself demands less power from your iPhone than many wired lightning earbuds. In my experience, I didn't notice more battery usage. Right, now let's move on to the games. As with my review for the Razer Kishi, I decided to try out games made directly for mobile, but I also threw in some remote play via the Xbox app just to test out the added latency. So first off, here's a quick demo of Call of Duty Mobile. Just a quick correction from my previous review, the Razer Kishi as well as the Backbone both support COD Mobile straight out of the box. Unfortunately, you have to play the opening sequence with the touchscreen controls, but once you pass that stage, the controllers both work perfectly. Playing Call of Duty on the Backbone was just so satisfying. I was able to rack up kills with ease, and I had no issues with the controller registering my input, even though I tend to play very aggressive and hit multiple buttons at the same time. In terms of latency, I noticed none. My overall experience was fantastic. The same can be said about Sonic Racing. Each button press was registered instantly, and even though it was my first time playing the game, I managed to win the race. I've even recorded this footage at 120 FPS and slowed it down just to show you how responsive the controller is. Every push of a button is registered on the screen without any delay. It's superb, and I should emphasize again, holding the controller feels great too. I went on for a 30-minute session and didn't notice any aches or pains in my hand. Next up we have Destiny 2, which I'm playing via remote play with the Xbox Series X. Whenever you're streaming a game from a server, you should always expect there to be some latency present. But in my own personal experience, using remote play via the Xbox is perhaps the best way to stream your games, considering there's very little latency. Now I am running a strong internet connection with a 5 GHz Wi-Fi signal to and from the source, but I can tell you that the Backbone makes remote play a more natural experience, practically matching the ease of picking up my Switch and kicking back on the couch for some Breath of the Wild. In this last demo, I decided to kick back to some Modern Warfare, which is a ridiculously fast-paced shooter with a fast time to kill, and as you can see, I managed to do quite well in a multiplayer match. In the last 2 weeks, my perspective on the Razer Kishi has changed so much. The Kishi currently retails for £100 or $100 US. At the time of my review, I managed to snag it for £80 on Amazon, so I felt that the pricing was completely justified, considering that there was very little in the market that could compete. However, that brings me to my final point about the Backbone. It's priced incredibly well. In fact, it's competitive, coming in at, you guessed it, £100. After 2 weeks of usage, I genuinely can't recommend anyone buy the Kishi over the Backbone. Of course, there are the obvious drawbacks. There's currently no support for Android, and Backbone haven't really provided any timescales on when to expect the product, whereas the Kishi is available for both iOS and Android users. The D-pad in terms of quality is poor, and I'm fully expecting to see some build improvements in the next iteration. However, this applies to both products, and as of right now, during the 2 weeks that I've had the Backbone, I haven't managed to find stock of it anywhere. There's clearly some shortages, but again that could be due to its popularity. Now on the plus side, the Backbone is extremely comfortable to hold, even more comfortable than my Joy-Cons as it's built around the curve of my hands, with my thumbs falling comfortably on the left analog stick. The layout is comparable to a compressed Xbox One controller, which also happens to be my weapon of choice for console gaming. The Backbone app has a fantastic UI, it doesn't feel like it's been bloated in any way, and it's clearly aimed at the hardcore gamers, offering functions like video capture and party chat. The controller itself is built very well, with each button providing that satisfying and tactile feedback. Battery life is also of no concern, as in my testing the Backbone didn't really require any extra horsepower from the phone. With all of these features combined, the Backbone removes a large barrier to entry in playing mobile games on a controller. In the last 2 weeks, I've managed to take away my PlayStation, Xbox and PC gaming on the go. And as a family man, I find it incredibly difficult to find time in the day to play my games. The Backbone solves that entirely. Like I said at the start of this review, this is my favorite piece of tech right now. Okay guys, that wraps up this review. Like the video, comment down below and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Be safe and I'll catch you all on the next video.